I am an ambitious man, and I used to talk openly about my goals. Whenever I wanted to do something that seemed so great to me, I told my loved ones and I would get negative feedback about it. They expressed their worries, and okay, I trusted them. So I took their advice. But then, upon reflection, at a later time in my life, I would realize that decision that I wanted to make would have actually been a very good decision. But I didn't take action. And I regret it now. I regret that I've listened to my loved ones, that I've listened to their fears, their worries, and allowed that to influence me, to now regret not having taken action on the thing that mattered to me the most. What did that got me? Anxiety for life. I used to be afraid of everything. I had such a limited mindset on what I can do to make myself grow. I kept myself into the traditional path of, okay, I'm going to go to school, then I'm going to work, and then when I work, I'll climb my way up on the ladder, the corporate ladder, because that seems to be the only way that I can grow. But that's false, because you don't really grow the way that you want to grow within that, in that world. At least if that's what you want to do, you can do that. But there's a huge limitation within that. There are many other ways that you can grow and that you can challenge yourself. Although I was working on that path, deep down I knew that it wasn't right for me. Deep down I knew that I was doing something wrong. I was ignoring my core desire. I was ignoring my own capabilities of that, what I wanted to do. And I was following down this path of what other people wanted from me instead of what I wanted for myself. So what was the result from it? I was unhappy. I was depressed. It felt like I was living an inauthentic life, which I was, because I wasn't being me. I was afraid of being me. I was afraid of showing my true self and talking about my goals and the ideas that I had, because what would I then get? Hatred. I would get people telling me, no, you're crazy. This is not the way that life works. But this is the thing. The way that life worked in the past is not the way that life works now. There are the same core fundamental principles that will always repeat itself. And one of that core fundamental things that we must never ignore is that if you stop living towards a life that you want to live, you will live a life of unhappiness. And there will be a deep regret inside of you, because you know that you are not doing that when you know you could be doing. Whenever I think about this, the question pops into my mind: what made the most successful people, the most revolutionary people that have appeared throughout life, throughout history, what made them so great? They thought differently. They did things what other people weren't doing. They pushed the limits, the boundaries of what the general public expected. Think of the story of Henry Ford. If you would have asked the people in the crowd, the people who came to him about what they wanted to have, they wanted to have faster horses. He got them a car. Now, if you look around, there are cars all around. We can't imagine going by the horse. No, we'd want the car. If you think about Steve Jobs, or if you think about Bill Gates, they pushed themselves to a limit. They pushed the expectations so far ahead that their products are still around. What they did is so huge and so different to what people were thinking could be the case. One day I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about cars, and he told me, like, do you know how to build a car? I said, yeah, you need an engine, you need wheels, you need a steering wheel, you need all these materials. He answered like, yeah, maybe you're right, but what if there is a different way of building a car? Because right now you're only thinking within the brackets of what is shown to you. But what if you think outside of the box? Maybe there's a different way of building a car with different materials, with materials that are actually better. And that just shows that you have to think outside of the box. It sounds crazy, because when he told me that, I was like, what the fuck? But it made sense. I made a mistake to listen to the fears of other people, and that kept me stuck. That kept me stuck in my life. I was depressed. I was unhappy. I was living this life that I didn't want to live, and I was afraid of being my most authentic self. Because if I would do that, I would be hated for it. And this is what we will have as ambitious people. We will always think differently. We will always want to push ourselves beyond a limit that most people think is crazy and is impossible, and that tests the perspective of the general public. And perhaps that's a good thing. That says a lot about you. And perhaps you have to push yourself. No, not perhaps. You have to push yourself towards that limit. You have to push yourself to persevere past what the general public is thinking. Because imagine what can come out of it. If I always kept myself thinking in the same direction that I was going in the past with the same perspective of other people, I would have never gotten up and stood in front of a camera. I would still think of building my way up in a 9-to-5. What makes people be the greatest selves? What made those people to push the boundaries is that they took risks. They acted fearlessly. Everybody was afraid, and still they said, nah, We're gonna do this. We're gonna make sure that this happens. And perhaps what they were talking about, they weren't really saying that to their loved ones. They were keeping that to themselves and only the people that resonate with their message. Because this is the thing, when you start talking about your goals to people who are not ambitious the way that you are, it's just a waste of energy. It's a waste of your time. For a big period of my life, I felt really lonely because I didn't have people around me who thought the same way like me. And their fears that they projected upon me influenced me to such a degree, because at the end of the day, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with most. At a certain point, I was wondering, where does this fear come from? If I look at my parents and what they promote to me, to get a mortgage, to buy a house, to settle down, to work up until you retire, well, they came from a generation where they had to move from country to country in order to survive, in order to make money to provide for their families. Nowadays, that's not really necessary anymore. I have people that I know, friends of mine, who sit at home, work from home, and they talk to foreigners. They make 10 times more money than what they would make if they would be working a 9 to 5, traveling countries. The possibilities of what happens right now, completely different. Back then, in the generation of when my parents came from, like in the 1960s, 1970s, it was limited. And people want a stability because everything has been so shaky before. But what's so crazy is that the way that my parents lived, the way that they were challenged in their lives made them to be such amazing people, and people with character, people with personality. Nowadays, you don't really see that anymore. Everybody's living a comfortable life and everybody wants to have too much than what they can actually have. What's so funny about that time and the generation that I'm talking about where my parents came from, a lot of people went through way more pain that got them to be in way more discomfort. And as a result, that got them to be stronger mentally, physically. We nowadays don't really have that anymore. Why? Because we have been fed a comfortable life. Everybody's doing everything for us. We don't really have to do anything. We don't even have the skills anymore that the people from the past had. Why? Because there are other people who do that from us. Like I've been raised in a household where I almost didn't have to do anything. Things were being done for me. What did I got for me? Not much. I became complacent. I became vulnerable to pain. I became vulnerable to being anxious. I became vulnerable to being depressed because I was never put in any challenging situation. When you are put in challenging situations and when you go through pain, you have to make it work. You have to push through. You have to persevere. If you don't, there's a consequence that will come your way. If I relate this to my parents, if my dad didn't travel to multiple countries to make money, he would die out of hunger, because there was no other way besides stealing that he could make it work. My parents came from a generation where they were afraid of losing everything. If they didn't challenge themselves, if they didn't do that what was necessary, they would lose everything. And a lot of people have that fear still. And that fear is still present. Look at the news. The news isn't positive. The news is filled with fear. It's fear-mongering. You are just being shown an image of what isn't always necessarily the truth, but people buy into it because of the way that it is made, plays into your emotions, and you become affected by it. Everybody is so afraid of life. Everybody is so afraid to take risks because everybody is so afraid of losing everything. But this is exactly the thing that is necessary to do. I want to grow. I want to become the greatest version of myself. That means that I have to take risks. That means that I have to be doing things that other people are not doing. I have to push myself to limits that I don't even think that are possible, but deep down, I somewhat know that they are possible because I've seen other people do it and I've seen what it gives them. I know what the standard 9 to 5 life will bring. I know that that is not the way that I want to live. I know that I will just live a comfortable life where I'm dependent on other people. I don't want that. I don't want to live in that situation. So how can I get out of it? If I look at the greatest people that have lived in life, they all went through pain. They all went through challenges. They all did things that pushed the perspective of what the general public thought. I'm going to do that. I'm going to work 10 times harder. I'm going to work 10 times smarter. I'm going to make different decisions because I see a pattern within everybody who is in the same position still, who has followed down the path of go to school, work a job, be nice at work, do this, get married, get a mortgage. I see what that gives. And I don't like the way that life looks. So now today, I don't really share my ideas with other people besides the people that I know who are ambitious and want to make it happen, because otherwise you would just be influenced by the fear of other people. And you'd be amazed how powerful that fear can be. You'd be amazed how much of an impact it gives you. You have to share that information with the right people. If you don't do that, then you're subject to losing. You're subject to ending up like everybody else and just having that fear inside of you. You have to push yourself past that fear. And in order to not be influenced by that fear, you have to keep your mouth shut and just simply work. Work on becoming the person that you want to be. I hope this video has been of value for you. Oh, by the way, if you want to manage your emotional behaviors and learn how to make better decisions, then click the first link in the description box right now. I want to wish you a very nice day, and remember that you are 100% responsible for the results in your life. Make the hard decision today, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye-bye.